Hi, and welcome to another episode of BC Chat. I'm Eric, and somewhere probably over there is Kristen. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Eric. Nice to see you again.
Thanks for joining me. So last week we traveled, adventure traveled all the way to Florida, to Orlando for directions. Um, how did your trip go?
I think my trip went amazing. I actually decided that I was going to go a couple days early this year, especially after what happened last year. I left Denver and I got stuck in Atlanta because of weather. And then I ended up driving overnight with a couple other people in the community. So I made sure that I got there early. I flew into Tampa on Wednesday. And then I went to see Taylor Swift on Friday with Mary Myers to kind of kick off this awesome week of being with the community. Why not?
Wow.
Uh, but but I hear that you had quite an interesting traveling to an interesting time traveling from Vancouver, right? So what happened?
So 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 okay. So last year I never made it to directions. I got stuck in Dallas, and there was no way for me to get out of Dallas. And at some point, I just got so mad that I was okay. I'm going home. So, and I was even in the keynote and everything, but it was crazy. So I thought, okay, that can never happen 2 years in a row. Um, and Saturday, went to the airport, and I was sitting in the plane, had a drink, and everything was, perfect. We were on time, and also then I get a text on my phone saying your flight has been cancelled. And I looked to the signs and looked at the flight attendants, and it was and so our flight was being cancelled because of volcanic ash somewhere over the Rockies, something.
Hmm.
Um, so we got shuffled out of the plane and down to a baggage claim and back. So the weird thing is that when you fly from Canada to the U.S., you actually go through U.S. immigration in Canada. Uh, so we had to, passport and everything back into Canada and get our bags, and then I got rescheduled for. Anyways, so Sunday I got on another plane over Toronto and had some issues in Toronto because the layover was so short. But eventually, I made it Sunday night, which means that I kind of missed the whole keynote Sunday. But you were there for the keynote, weren't you?
I was there for the keynote. The keynote was very good. You know, there's a lot of commercials from the ISVs and the sponsors that happened during the first half of the keynote, and then Microsoft came out with some announcements, so that was pretty exciting as well.
And I think I got some photos you took from the keynote, so maybe we should take a look at that. Here's one thing that I found interesting, and maybe this needs a bit of explanation. Um, an attach license. So if you purchase more than one Dynamics license of the different sorts of Dynamics, you can save some money by figuring out which one is the most expensive one, and then see if there's anything that will attach to that at a attach price. And they added those two new options that's on screen right now, and you can only attach something that's cheaper than the one you attach from. So if you have Dynamics Sales Enterprise, you can attach that to Business Central.
Hmm.
Business Central Premium. If you have you know what? I'm trying to read this. Business Central Essential attached to Sales Enterprise and Sales Enterprise. So if you have a Business Central Premium, you can
Right.
attach a Sales Enterprise. If you have a sales enterprise, you can attach a Business Central Essential. I think, is that right?
Yep, that's right. And it does say coming soon. I was able to contact my partner who I have my licensing through on Friday, and I was able to get this added to my tenant just on Friday. So even though it says coming soon, I think it's
Hmm.
out there already for everybody and take advantage of it.
Interesting. Let's flip through some of these and see if there's something else that we want to comment on. Um, so AI already, even though I first came Sunday, my guess is that AI took a big spot, a big chunk of the keynote, because it did take a big chunk of everything else that Microsoft was talking about during the week.
Yeah, Microsoft actually during more than one keynote, they used the AI and they used Bing to kind of tell a story up on stage. So it's really cool to see the CoPilot actually in action. They showed a demo of it utilizing items and like creating marketing text and different things like that. It was really mind blowing. As a consultant, I think it's really cool. As an end user of this system, I think it's really only going to be cool for people who are maybe utilizing e-commerce or Shopify to be able to kind of make that marketing text and those descriptions automatically. I don't know. What do you think, Eric? Because you're the developer here, and I
Well,
know that
um,
this
uh,
is going to affect you too.
so there's also the ability to write emails,
Mhm.
which I think is cool. But I think it's so maybe the so all this is based on the same technology as GPT, which Microsoft owns a big part of OpenAI. There's a very tight relationship there. But whenever Microsoft, right, it seems that whenever they use the chat GTP based AI, they call it Copilot. So if it's not direct text generation, but it's embedded into somewhere in Dynamics or anywhere else in Microsoft, it's all branded Copilot, but it's kind of the same thing. It is the same thing, but it's purpose built or placed in inside an app, and I I I think it's pretty cool, and I think we have only just seen the tip of the iceberg for this. So I'm looking forward to more of this. I'm looking forward to use it myself in my apps. I just need
Mhm.
to figure out how to. Oops, did
Right.
I hit something? I hit something. Let's see what else we have here. Inventory and warehouse. I'm gonna skip that one. Core functionality. For all you accountants out there, statistical accounts. Did you have that in GP?
Yeah, statistical
I can't
accounts
remember.
were out of the box in GP, and I know they were never out of the box in BC until version 22 now. But there was another partner that had it
Yeah.
out there on the marketplace that it worked great. So I haven't played around with it in version 22 yet, just to see how it works. But that's pretty exciting for anybody looking to come off of GP and still needs that functionality because it's just something that was missing for the longest time.
So another thing here is the enhanced intercompany capabilities, which I still think is too little. What Microsoft are doing, I think they're making some of the operations easier, but they're still missing the core user groups, which is that if if I were an accountant, not, but if I were and I was working with intercompany quite often, the operation I would do was that I would do something intercompany, and then I would send it to myself. So I'm working in company A, and then in reality I'm sending the other half of the transaction over to company B, but I am also the accountant in company B. So it's still very much designed as you have an outbox and you send stuff to an inbox, and then somebody else is working in another company and retrieving the transaction from the inbox and looking at them and posting them and so on. And it's just too many steps because it's all me. So if I do intercompany in A to B, I just want the stuff in B to be posted. And and now they have added a hard lock on 300 companies per database. So if you are running a situation with a lot of companies, you will get maxed out at 300 companies. So then the official thing is to go to more production environments, but intercompany between environments is still file-based, which blows my mind that that's still the design today. So hopefully this is something that will get some more love in coming versions.
Right. And there's one that you jumped over here, but I just want a quick touch base on it for those accountants on the call is the Analyze tool. So I've been playing around a lot with this just in my production environment lately. And for example, when I got back from directions, I went into my general ledger entries window and I turned on Analyze, and I was able to create a pivot table right within Business Central and start analyzing year over year my expenses in regards to attending Directions North America. One thing that I found really interesting about this, and I did email Microsoft about it, is that in my testing, I noticed that it was taking into account the closing income statement entries. So when it was doing the total for all the years, it was giving me a zero balance because it was taking into account that. So I think that there's a little bit more work that Microsoft needs to do on that front, making sure that that is buttoned up before it gets, a lot of people start using it, I guess. But it's a really cool tool. And I think right now, just me personally, I mean, I do a lot of like pushing things out to Excel. So using that open in Excel functionality, it's going to take a little bit of time to retrain my brain that I can do it now in the system.
Well, it's kind of a light Power BI you're getting there with live data. So I think it's pretty cool, and I think what we'll see is that some pages need to have certain fields added in order for you to be able to create the optimal reports. So both from a
Mhm.
filtering perspective, but also from like what flow fields are on a page. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool, and I think we're just going to see more of that.
Mhm.
Let's do see if there's other ones that we onboarding framework. So Microsoft, of course, want implementation often measured in weeks, not years. Onboarding efforts include. Uh, Microsoft still thinks that we should implement faster. I find that most cases we're waiting for the clients more than they're waiting for us on implementations.
Absolutely.
Um, they have created a lot of tools. I'm not sure how much it helped, but there's a lot of onboarding tools anyway.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Microsoft is kind of looking off in the horizon is, um, if you look at Nav on-prem or even Dynamics GP, there are a lot of companies using them still, and eventually they're going to have to get off of on-prem. And I think we have a slide coming up about Dynamics GP announcement as well. But when you think
Oh
about
yeah,
that,
let's see if we can find that
um,
one.
we don't have enough consultants. We don't have enough people implementing BC right now. So it is going to take a little bit of time to get everybody up and running. Um, it may be in the second batch of
Yeah,
screenshots.
let me see if I can find the second batch.
Yes. But I
Let
did
me see if
see
I can
if
find
if
this.
if everyone's watching, we now know where Directions North America 2024 is going to be. If you were watching
Oh yeah,
Eric's,
yeah, 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 yeah.
super
So
excited
so
about. Yeah.
I think going back to my travel worries that there's two things that is important to understand. That one, if you see yourself on a plane with me, be prepared to get delayed. Two, there are direct flights from Vancouver to San Diego. So that is gonna be a major game changer for me at least. Um, so I am looking for the GP slide and I don't see it, but I think we can. The slide is not that important here.
I
So what
will.
Microsoft has done is that they have put a date and saying from I can and now I should remember the date, but I can't.
I
Do you
will.
remember the date?
I'm going to send it your way right now. And then you can go
No,
ahead and share.
I found it. I found it. I found
Perfect.
it. Here we go. Let me open that up.
So Mike
So,
Morton, if we
it,
remember last year at Community Summit, Mike Morton alluded to this room full of GP users and partners that maybe something is coming, right? So what he mentioned at Directions North America is he said effective April 1st, 2025, purchases by new customers of GP will be limited to subscription licensing. So that was new. And then he came out and said, as of April 1st, 2026, subscription licensing is going to be limited to existing customers only. So that's kind of the thing
so,
we're talking about here is that if you're already on GP, you can still get new licenses, but if you're looking to get on GP, after 2026, not going to happen.
and this is this is my very personal opinion on that topic, but should you even go on GP today, right? The
I don't think so.
technology stack is really really old, and going onto an ERP system that clearly has an end of life and has been been treated like end of life for a few years now is I don't think that's a wise decision. From a technology perspective. There might be good reasons that there are specific industry solutions and add-ons created for GP are not really available anywhere else yet, and that's important for running your company. But looking at all the vendors, app publishers that were at Direction, because there were quite a few, and a lot of them, came from the world of GP. So it seems that most of it has been. I don't know. What's your impression? Are there stuff from GP that we are missing in the Business Central ecosphere?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely some things missing. I was talking with Microsoft about how drop shipments have work in GP versus Business Central, and I actually lost a deal with a prospect because of the way that they worked. It wasn't going to work for their business. Prepayments, I know we have issues in BC about doing multiple prepayments for sales orders and such. One of the things that really worries me, Eric, is that. Um, the things that are missing in BC yet, I do think that Microsoft is listening and they're trying their hardest and fastest to get it into BC. But part of what I worry about is, we have thousands of clients still on GP and even NAV on Prem. And in the next 2 to 3 years, they're going to be wanting to move to Business Central. And I'm worried about the implementation time frames. I think that they're going to go to partners and the partners are going to say, look, we're going to put you on a waiting list 3 to 6 months, and then they're going to go to one of our competitors and they're going to be like, well, we can get you started today. So I do worry about that aspect as well, and I did talk to a couple folks at Directions North America about that, and we all kind of were in agreement that that this is going to be a problem over the next few years.
Oh, I think there's a there's there's a there's very much a difference between upgrading a nav to BC project and upgrading a GP to a BC project, because the nav can be an upgrade. Sure, there are certain versions of, no, not versions, but there are people out there with navs that have been customized to be non-upgradable. But even if that's the case, it's still kind of the same piece of software they would be upgrading to, even they choose to re-implement. Where the GP to BC, there's a tool that will move a few tables and some data, but it's a very two very very different processes, and I can see that we have we have seen two different types of projects coming our way. Is that either it's GP customers who want to upgrade, but their partner is not really ready. I don't know if that's the right label, but
Hmm.
but they don't get any traction with the partners to get it going. But we also see customers coming to us who have upgraded to BC, and then they figure out that their partner is not really equipped and has enough BC knowledge to. So there's a lot of cleanup that is gonna post migration gonna happen, because it was done without a very much BC knowledge. So I think there is a from a channel perspective, there's a big training education exercise in the hands of Microsoft to get the channel, the GP channel up and ready for this.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you look at, you know, my business, for example, small partner, and my background's GP. And I have a couple prospects right now that are on version nav 2013 R2 on prem, and they want to upgrade and then do the migration, and it's like, okay, well, I don't have anyone on staff to do that, so for me, being able to work with a partner that is equipped to do that piece of it is huge. And I actually met someone at Directions North America that this is really what they're focusing on right now is these upgrades and migrations. And one of the things that I'm hearing from these clients is that they're being told that they can't upgrade, they can't do the migration because they're on too old of a version. And I guess that's a question too, is, can we get them upgraded? Because I don't think Microsoft is giving keys out, registration keys, for even now 2018 these days, is what I'm hearing.
Now, anybody with a partner license can run any version.
Mm.
So a partner can run the technical upgrade all the way back from something ancient.
Got it.
Uh, that is not that's not a technical limitation. Um, there are some key versions, and whenever you have the upgrade tools from provided from Microsoft, they there's kind of groups, and then as soon as you're in a group, you can go to the latest, and then you can jump from that group to the next group, and then you can go to the latest in that group of versions. So wherever you're starting, it's not a single shot and then you're on BC, right?
Right.
You got to jump to through key versions, but a partner has the tools, has the license to do that. There's no technical barriers that will not allow you to upgrade.
All right. Well, here we go.
The main
Education.
problem is that if you have a nav, if you have a nav 2013, right, that has been customized for 10 years, and base tables, base objects, everything has been changed to with no regard of upgradability. then you gonna there's work ahead of you. But most and this is said with the then comments below and all that good stuff yell at me, but most BC installations can be downgraded to whatever core version they are on, and then upgraded from that, just carrying the data forward, and then you can re-implement some of the changes. And some changes are not re-implementable, uh, simply because they rely on you breaking Business Central or breaking nav. But you should probably find a better way of doing that anyway.
Hmm. Definitely.
But let's talk about something else. Because we had I don't know even how to describe it. So maybe you describe it. So there's a movement going on called Women in Dynamics.
Yes,
What's that all
yes.
about?
Yes. So Vicky from the UK, Bam Boom Cloud started Women in Dynamics, and it launched at Directions EMEA 2021 in Milan. And don't be fooled by the name Women in Dynamics, because their whole purpose is about diversity, inclusion. How do we get, just more people into the space, but I think their focus really, is maybe women, because they every time we hear about women in dynamics and they're up on the stage, they're talking about inclusion, they're talking about diversity, um, but they're also talking about and throwing up stats on women, like how many women are in the community. We have, I think, around somewhere between 75 and 100 partners worldwide that have signed up to be part of this movement, and they're sharing their data as well with women in dynamics. So um, Vicky was up on the big stage during the keynote, and she had a couple slides up there about how many, percentage of women in the space and different things like that. Let me see if I can find one of them here. But at the end of the day, there was a huge luncheon, and I was part of the luncheon last year. And there's a huge luncheon this year. I think I sent you a picture, Eric, if you want to try and find it. But the room was packed, and this year's message was this, and it stood for their tagline was, "This is an us thing, not a they thing." And then they had speakers come out and talk about each letter. So T meant track, H was hire diverse talent, I was immerse inclusivity, and S is stop the dropout. So each one of these had a different speaker, and it was really interesting and to hear not only them talk about what it meant to them personally, but how their organizations are doing, what their organizations are doing as well. So yeah, there's the partner pledge, and I think they said they have just over 75 pledges signed. And all of these companies here that you're seeing, they're sharing their data. So every year there's a new questionnaire that goes out, and it's asking, how many women are in your organization, how many women are part of leadership, did you have any women, that left the organization, kind of going into that dropout rate. Um, so I think over the next couple of years, we're going to be hearing more on women in dynamics. And, as a woman in tech myself, I welcome the opportunity to talk about women in dynamics, and I think last year was the first year that Directions North America really had anything pertaining to women in dynamics. We had a luncheon, and we had a panel up on the stage, which I was a part of last year. And there wasn't very many people in the room compared to this year. I think it was probably about half of what it was this year. So, I think you went to the luncheon, right,
Oh,
Eric?
this year was fairly packed, I think.
Mhm.
There were hundreds. I did not count, but the room felt uh, not packed because you could fit 1,100 people into that room, which was the entire conference. But there were enough people that the room felt like it was full. So I think that was very cool, and I can only hope we get more and more companies on this list. I will certainly try to do whatever I can, and I think the it's quite interesting with specifically direction North America because sometimes some years it's truly feels like a less than a conference and more like a high school reunion, where when people come to have a party and hang out with the old friends, and some of it can be very male dominated, but I think see a trend of this being getting improved, but I don't have any numbers to back it up in any way. Maybe uh, Vicky and company will have numbers to back this up, or not back it up, but at least know what the trend is.
Yeah. I definitely feel like this year there were a lot more women at the conference just in general. I mean, whether they're working for a partner or ISVs. I saw a lot of pink, a lot of women wearing bright colors, and they stand out, and they were confident, like I didn't run across anyone who I felt, didn't belong there, right? So it was really, really cool to kind of mingle, historically, the high school feel. You get 20 MVPs going to a conference with Microsoft, and we tend to sometimes like hang out together. And this year was a little bit different because, there were a lot of folks in the group that we regularly hang out with that weren't there this year. And I think this is probably the first year in a long time, at least, post COVID, where I've gone to a conference and I've networked as much as I have. I mean, I went home with no voice. I had talked to the point that I couldn't talk anymore. So I think that's something to be said about that.
That's also because the celebration Tuesday night was at a very very loud
Loud place.
venue.
It
It
was
was
so loud.
and maybe I'm getting older. So there's too loud music, but it was, yeah, it was loud.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I was
So
actually
did you
talking
go
with
to
someone
any?
about that. I was telling someone, I was like,
So did you go to? Okay, I'm gonna totally interrupt you here. So did you go to any interesting sessions?
I did. I went to so Kenny and Brian from Microsoft held a session on Analyze and the Analyze tool. And at one point, I mean, the partners were just asking questions left and right, almost to the point where like Brian and Kenny couldn't even get through the presentation because they were getting interrupted so much. And at one point, Kenny goes, "Hold your horses." And then he said, "Don't quote me on this," but he said, there's more to come. There's more enhancements to come. He couldn't allude to anything, obviously, but that was pretty exciting. And then there's one other good session I went to, and it was on accessibility, and it was Taylor Dorward. And I was actually really bummed that there was no Microsoft in the room. And there actually, I think there was only like 12 people in the audience in his session. And I think that it
Mm.
should have been more attended, and here's why. I think that um ISVs, partners, Microsoft. I know Microsoft works a lot on accessibility. I was actually talking with Mike Morton and Taylor about it the night before with Harina, and what they go through to make sure that BC is accessible to all is pretty amazing. I mean, down to like the color scheme and like different things within the system and how it interacts. Um, but Taylor had a really good presentation on, and he's visually impaired. And it was interesting to
Hmm.
hear his take on how he's treated differently within the community. Not good or bad, just like the way he feels he's perceived. And then maybe even like what companies can do to help more. He gave an example about his current work environment and how he feels people from the United States versus overseas maybe a little bit different feel as far as that goes. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it was a huge missed opportunity for so many to like miss out on that session because, you know, as a company and even maybe even in your business, Eric, I mean, I asked one other ISV there, I said, what are you guys doing for accessibility? And they said, honestly, nothing. And I'm like, well, how do you know like if it's good enough or like if people can use your tool and whatnot? And they're like, I don't know, like we've never thought about it. And I think it's a huge miss. I think it needs to be looked at more. So I thought that was a good one.
No, no, and I think there was quite a few good sessions, and for some reason, quite often they were all at the same time.
They
So
were.
I feel I missed so many sessions because either there are too many good ones, or the one that I found interesting were all at the same time.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. There was a session on Tuesday night. It was by Microsoft and it was about the partner program and like talking about, the whole like grading system and how do you become a certified partner or a solutions partner, different things like that. That room was packed. And I ended up walking out about 5 minutes after, it was still going, like it ran over. So I think
okay.
those types of sessions are really needed right now because a lot of partners are so confused on what they need to do.
So did
And
they talk about the new developer certification in that one?
they did not talk about it specifically, but we know it's coming. They mentioned that in the keynote. In this session specifically, they were talking about how to get your points as a partner and what it means, right? So, for example,
Oh,
um, talked a little bit about the changes, right? So on March 17th, 2022, Microsoft announces the Microsoft Cloud Partner Program replacing the MPN program. And they talked about the solution partner designations, how that replaces the gold and silver competencies. The speaker went into talking about the new commerce experience, the CSP subscription data issues are now fixed. So if you're a partner and you were having issues with different things, they said that should be fixed now too. But what was really interesting about this is I'm a new partner. I've only been a Microsoft partner since February of 2022. Um, and when I go into my partner center and I look at my points and like where I'm at, for the longest time nothing was showing up and I was like, what is going on? Like, am I not doing something right? Different things like that, right? Um, so they actually talked about, each category and like what it means and how the points are calculated and gave they actually gave a scenario on like, that this is something you could do if you kind of follow this scenario. So it was really interesting to me just because, you know, I would love to be at one point like get some competency there as a partner, but I think it's going to take me a year or two maybe before any of that actually happens. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But I'm gonna switch again here. So one of the things that I did, and if here we are 40 minutes into the video, so if there's some of the usual viewers still hanging on, you have seen me uh, on sometimes having to re-authenticate again and again and again with Visual Studio Code when working against cloud tenants. Um, and this is something I have been telling Microsoft for a long time, and they have tried every time I tell them about it, and I could not replicate it. But this year, actually, the second keynote in the morning, I got the error again and again and again. I was sitting next to uh, somebody from the CoPilot team at Microsoft. So we spent, I think, no, it was a couple of hours um, Tuesday ending up being able to replicate this very, very weird error. It's like some Heisenberg thing uh, on the Microsoft's the compiler guy's computer. So there's hope. And if that's the only thing I will get out of this year's direction, that I will still consider that a big win because that bug has really, really annoyed me. Uh, and it has to do if you run multiple Visual Studio codes at the same time and authenticate to different tenants, and then suddenly, all the access token gets mixed up somehow, and then it decides to re-authenticate instead. Um, so that's also the kind of networking you get on on an event like that. Kristen, did you have any chance to spend some time directly with Microsoft one on one?
Yeah, I did. My one-on-one included me telling Kenny that my production environment won't update. It keeps failing. And I showed him the error message, and he's like, "Well, open a case." And then, funny enough, that night it upgraded with no issues. So I don't know if he pushed the magic button for me, but it's always a good time hanging out with Microsoft because I feel like they are listening. And I was pulled into a roundtable, and unfortunately, I can't talk about it, but Microsoft is listening. And if you're a partner out there, a consultant, ISV, and you're really wondering, is it even worth me going to an event like this, a directions type event? Absolutely. I mean, if you can get in and talk with Microsoft and get those contacts, it really truly is amazing because they listen. And I mean, I have no problem, Eric, just emailing Microsoft either every now and then and sending them a bug too. And I know being an MVP, that's kind of one of the perks, I guess, that we get to really know this team out of Denmark, and they're so friendly and they hang out with us, and it's super cool. It feels like they're more than friends, than or they are friends more than like maybe just colleagues or like people that we have to work with. So I think that's pretty cool.
No, but I think, and it's probably a great closing remark here, is that um, I think Microsoft now, because of the cloud and them being very much more involved in the clients and stuff like that, that we are in this together. So it is it takes a village, and the village is both Microsoft and partners and MVPs and customers and ISVs and so on. And there's a lot of stuff that we can do when we work together. And it's interesting because I truly believe that you know with the change Microsoft has gone through, where now they are also, you know, I don't know if you can say they own the customers, but they are directly involved in a customer has changed a lot of mindset with them, and I feel that in the change behavior from compared for 10 years ago when they were never involved in anything with a client, from my perspective anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember Microsoft on the GP side of things, like coming to conferences and the developers and the program managers being there. Maybe they were, I just didn't know about it, but definitely feel like they're way involved, which is nice to see.
Anyway, Kristen, thanks for showing up for this, and thanks for all your insights and stories from Directions. Let's see if we can. If the next episode of BC Talk will be about DynamicsCon in Scottsdale, because that's in a month, and maybe something interesting will come by that. Anyway, thank to you, dear viewer, for sticking with us for 47 minutes and counting. If you want to see more of the regular scheduled programming on the channel, hacks and coding and all that good stuff, there's a link. I don't know where to point today because I don't know where I am on the screen, that is. You know where to click, and I'll see you there. Take care. Bye.